Turn around. Just turn the car around and go home. That was the voice in my head, screaming at me from the driver's seat of a rented Tesla, parked just outside the crumbling brick gates of Willow Creek High School. My hand was shaking. Not a lot, but enough for me to notice. I hadn't been back in 20 years. Not since the day I walked out of these gates with a diploma I didn't care about and a promise to myself that I would never, ever return. And yet, here I was, on the passenger seat, an invitation printed on cheap. Glittery cardstock lay like a threat. Class of 2005 20-year reunion. I told myself I was coming back to see how things had changed. I told myself I was curious. I told myself I was over it. But that was a lie. I looked at my reflection in the car's dark, silent screen. The man looking back wasn't the boy they remembered. They remembered Data Dave. They remembered the acne, the glasses held together with electrical tape, the shoulders permanently hunched in a state of defense, the boy who was too smart, too quiet, and too easy to hurt. They didn't know the man I'd become. They didn't know about the company in Palo Alto. They didn't know about the corner office, the patents, or the 9-figure valuation. And they definitely didn't know about the slim, carbon fiber briefcase sitting on the floorboard at my feet. I wasn't here for nostalgia. I wasn't here to reminisce about the good old days that had been a living hell for me. I was here for one reason, and one reason only. His name was Brad Thompson. The golden boy, the quarterback, the class president, the man who, even now, was the beloved, charismatic mayor of this very town, the man who had personally, and with great pleasure, destroyed my entire future. He thought I was just a ghost, a forgotten footnote from his glorious high school career. He had no idea that for 20 years, I hadn't forgotten a single thing. And tonight, I was here to deliver the receipts. I took a deep breath. The sterile, new car smell, feeling wrong in this place that still smelled like damp leaves and old regrets. I grabbed the briefcase. Okay, I whispered to my reflection. Showtime. To understand why I was walking into my high school reunion armed with a legal audit, you have to understand the food chain at Willow Creek High. Class of 2005. It was rigid. It was brutal. And it was absolute. At the very top, breathing rarefied air, was Brad Thompson. He wasn't just popular. He was the system. He had that perfect, all-American combination of blonde hair, a quarterback's arm, and a casual cruelty that everyone mistook for confidence. His father, a wealthy local developer, owned half the town, and Brad moved through the hallways like he owned the other half. Teachers loved him. Girls adored him, and he reserved a special kind of poison for anyone who didn't fit into his perfect world. And then, somewhere down at the bottom, buried beneath the jocks, the preps, the theater kids, and even the goths, there was me, Data Dave. I was the king of the nerds, which meant I was the lowest of the low. I was a skinny, painfully awkward kid, one of only 3 Asian American students in our grade. My crimes were simple. I got straight A's. I preferred the computer lab to the pep rally, and I was an easy target. My life was a daily exercise in survival, dodging shoves in the hallway, enduring the laughter when my books were accidentally knocked out of my hands, eating lunch in the library just to avoid the cafeteria. My only escape, my only hope, was a program I'd spent my entire senior year building. I called it Project Phoenix. It was a rudimentary data sorting algorithm. But for 2005, it was revolutionary. It was my passion. It was my art. And it was my ticket out. I'd entered it into the Ohio State Tech Innovator Scholarship Competition. The grand prize was a full ride to any state university. I was a finalist. For one glorious week. I wasn't Data Dave. I was local whiz kid, according to a small, grainy photo in the Willow Creek Gazette. And that's when Brad Thompson noticed me. He cornered me by my locker 2 days after the article ran. He wasn't alone. He had his 2 linebacker shadows. His usual court of jesters. Well, if it isn't Data Dave. He sneered. That smile of his, it never reached his eyes. He snatched the project which I'd saved on a set of 3 5-inch floppy disks right out of my hand. My blood ran cold. Please, Brad, give it back. He begged. My voice cracked, thick with humiliation. Please. That's my scholarship. It's everything. He looked at the discs. He looked at me. His blue eyes were perfectly calm. Nobody likes a smartass. Dave, he said, almost conversationally. And then, with agonizing slowness, he held up the first disc and snapped it in half. Snap. The sound was so small, but it echoed in the hallway. He snapped the second one. Snap. Guess you'll have to stay in Willow Creek with the rest of us. Buddy. He dropped the shattered plastic fragments at my feet and walked away, his friends laughing behind him. I lost the scholarship. I didn't get the full ride. I couldn't afford the 4-year university I'd been accepted to. Instead, I spent 2 years at Willow Creek Community College, working the night shift at a 24-hour diner. The smell of burnt coffee and grease clinging to my clothes. I saved every penny. I coded until my fingers were numb. I finally transferred to Stanford on a mountain of student loans and academic grants. I built my company, Ether Analytics. From my cramped dorm room, I built it on rage, on caffeine, and on the memory of that snap. He never forgot. He never forgave. And now, I was back. The gymnasium was exactly as I remembered it. Smaller, sadder, and smelling of stale sweat. Industrial floor wax. And the sugary, watered-down punch that sat in a big plastic bowl on a folding table. A terrible playlist of early 2000s hip-hop was blaring. I got my name tag. It just said David Chen. I'd left the CEO part off the registration form. I wanted to be invisible for as long as possible. I saw old faces, softened and blurred by 20 years. Jessica Riley, the prom queen, looked tired. A few of the jocks were paunchy and balding. They looked right through me. Data Dave was a ghost. Just as I'd planned. I felt a small, strange wave of relief. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe I could just see it and leave. Then, a heavy hand clamped down on my shoulder. The touch was so familiar it sent a jolt of ice through my veins. I'll be damned. A voice boomed. A voice that still echoed in my nightmares. Data Dave, you actually showed up. I turned, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was him, Brad Thompson. He was older, a little heavier in the jowls. But the smile was the same. Predatory, confident. He was wearing an expensive blue suit that was just a little too tight, and a small American flag pin on the lapel. The mayor. Man. Look at you, he boomed, squeezing my shoulder in a gesture that was meant to look friendly but was pure dominance. He was playing to the small crowd that had instantly formed around him. The way they always did. You clean up good. Davo, I almost didn't recognize you without the tape on your glasses. A few people chuckled, the same nervous, sycophantic laugh I remembered. It's David now. Brad, I said. My voice was remarkably even. I was proud of that. Right. Right, David. He winked at the group. So, what are you up to? Man. Still playing with those. What'd you call 'em? Project Phoenix's things. My blood ran cold. He remembered. He actually remembered the name of the project he'd destroyed. It wasn't just a random act of bullying. It was a trophy. He had enjoyed it. I forced a neutral expression. Something like that. I run a data analytics firm out in California. Ooh. California. Brad's smile widened. He wrapped an arm around my neck, pulling me into a suffocating side hug, and addressed the crowd again. Everyone. Everyone. Listen up. Data Dave here is a big shot in California. Makes sense. Right? Always had his head in a computer. I stood there, rigid. As he held me, I could smell the expensive cologne and the faint, unmistakable scent of whiskey on his breath. You know, Brad continued, his voice dropping into a faux sentimental tone. I remember this one time. Senior year. Dave here was all stressed out about some computer project. He wouldn't. Not here. Not now. Oh. Yes. He would. He was gonna win some big scholarship, Brad said, shaking his head with a paternal chuckle, and I told him. I said, Dave, you gotta get your head out of the books. You gotta learn to live a little. He was rewriting history, right here, in front of everyone. And you know what I did? He looked around. Conspiratorial. I broke that little project of his. Smashed those little discs. The crowd's laughter was nervous this time. Even they seemed to sense the cruelty. But Brad barreled on, high on his own power. Tough love, right? He slapped my back. Hard. And look at you now. A CEO CU should be thanking me. Buddy, I probably saved you from a life of, well, whatever you were back then. He finally let me go. And the group erupted in laughter. This time, it was genuine. He had successfully framed his sociopathic bullying as a tough love mentorship. He was a politician. Through and through. Jessica Riley, who had drifted over, looked at me with an expression I knew all too well. Pity. That was worse than the laughter. I felt the old shame rising, hot and acidic. In my throat, my face was burning. I wanted to turn and run. I wanted to fly back to San Francisco, to my glass and steel office where I was the king, where no one would dare speak to me like that. This was a mistake, a colossal, 20-year-late mistake. Excuse me, I mumbled, pulling away from the group. I need to get some punch. I didn't go to the punch bowl. I walked straight to the men's room at the end of the gym. The tile was the same putrid shade of green. I splashed cold water on my face. The cheap brown paper towel rough against my skin. I looked in the mirror. And for a second, I saw Data Dave. Scared. Weak. And then I got angry. No. He didn't just break my project. He stole my scholarship. He stole my future. And now he was stealing the story. Painting himself as the hero. Not tonight. I dried my hands, straightened my tie, and picked up my briefcase, which I'd set by the door. I walked back into the gym, and on the small stage at the front, old Mr. Henderson, the principal, who was somehow still the principal, was tapping a microphone. All right, folks, if I can have your attention, he squawked, the feedback screeching. We're going to start our welcoming remarks. And first up, a man who needs no introduction. Our very own, Mayor Brad Thompson. The gym erupted in applause. Brad bounded onto the stage, waving. His smile, a blinding white. He was a natural. I had to give him that. He launched into a charismatic, empty speech about Willow Creek values and community, and remembering where you came from. He was good. He was very good. And as he spoke, he kept looking over at me, standing in the back, He gave me a little wink. You should be thanking me. Buddy. He finished to thunderous applause. Mr. Henderson came back up. Thank you, Mayor, and now, for a special announcement. One of our own alumni who has done very well for himself. Please welcome to the stage, CEO of Ether Analytics, Mr. David Chen. The applause was polite, but confused. Brad's smile faltered. Just for a second. CEO. I walked toward the stage. I felt completely calm. The data was processed. The algorithm was running. This wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning. I took the microphone from Mr. Browdes. Henderson. The weight of it was familiar. I'd given keynote speeches to auditoriums of 10,000 people. This gym, with its 200 faded faces, was nothing. The room was quiet, expectant. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I started, my voice clear and amplified, cutting through the din. It's surreal to be back here. I looked out at the crowd. I saw the faces. I saw Jessica. I saw the old jocks, the old cheerleaders, and I saw Brad, standing just off stage, his arms crossed. That politician's smile still pasted on, though it looked a little strained. I have a lot of memories in this building, I continued. Some good, some challenging. I let that hang in the air. High school teaches you lessons. Important leçon. It teaches you about social structures, about power, about resilience. It taught me that sometimes the systems we're in, they're broken. I saw a few people nod. Mr. Henderson looked particularly interested. The school was notoriously underfunded. My company, Ether Analytics, believes in building better systems. We believe in the power of data to find the truth, and we believe in investing in the future. I paused, then turned and reached into my briefcase. I pulled out a large, comically oversized presentation check. Which is why tonight, I said, holding the check high. On behalf of Ether Analytics, I am announcing the Willow Creek Futures Initiative. We are donating $1 million to rebuild this school's science and technology wing. The sound that followed was a collective, ragged intake of breath. Then, shouts. People gasped. They screamed. They jumped to their feet, applauding wildly. Mr. Henderson's jaw dropped. Jessica Riley had her hands over her mouth. $1 million. In Willow Creek. That was a king's ransom. Brad was the most stunned of all, but he recovered quickly. He was a politician. After all, he was the first one on stage, clapping me on the back, grabbing my other arm and holding it up like we'd just won a title fight. My buddy Dave, he yelled, leaning into my microphone. I knew you wouldn't forget us. What a guy, a true Wolverine. He was trying to take credit, to absorb the moment, to make my donation his victory. I waited for the applause to die down. I did not smile. When the room was quiet again, I raised my hand. But the entire gym went silent. Even Brad stopped clapping. This donation, I said, my voice cold and precise, comes with one condition. I looked directly at Brad. This $1 million donation, and all future town funds associated with school reconstruction, will be managed by an independent, third-party ethics committee, an ethics committee that my firm will help establish and audit for free. I added, we just want to ensure transparency. Brad's smile froze. It didn't just falter, it shattered. What? What does that mean? Dave, he asked, his voice suddenly small, losing its boom. It means accountability. Mayor Thompson, I said, I turned to the large projector screen at the back of the stage. They had been using it for a slideshow of old yearbook photos. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped an app. A second later, the in memoriam slideshow was replaced by a spreadsheet. A very complex, very detailed spreadsheet. As a data company, I said, my voice echoing, we did some due diligence on Willow Creek's public finances before making this donation. Just a little. Project Phoenixes of my own. Brad went white. A sickly paligre. He knew what this was. It's amazing what you can find in public records, I said to the crowd, who were all staring, mesmerized, at the screen. If you know where to look, for example. I tapped my phone, and a section of the spreadsheet was highlighted in red. The contract for the new town square revitalization, a very important project. It was awarded for $400,000 to a company called Thompson Terraforming. I heard a gasp from the front row. A woman I recognized as Brad's wife. Thompson Terraforming, a company registered just 2 years ago. I continued, my voice methodical. A company that, according to state records, shares a post office box with your brother-in-law, Kevin. A company that has billed the town for over $400,000 in labor and materials, and has not, to date, laid a single paving stone. The gym was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. It's all public record. Folks, I said, or it is now. I tapped my phone again. The spreadsheet was replaced by a flowchart. Money flowing from Town Revitalization Fund to Thompson Terraforming to an offshore account, and then back into a personal account under the name B. Thompson. He's been stealing from you, I said, my voice finally shaking. Not with fear, but with 20 years of suppressed rage. He's been stealing from this school, from this town, for his entire term as mayor. He didn't just break my project. He's been breaking your trust. You, Brad whispered, his face a mask of purple rage and sheer panic. You can't. I can, I said, and I did. I nodded to the back of the gym. 2 men in dark, unflashy suits, who had been standing by the punch bowl looking bored, suddenly pushed through the crowd. They were not local cops. They had the hard, impassive look of state investigators. They walked right up the steps to the stage. Mayor Thompson, the taller one, said, his voice flat, you need to come with us. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, Wehre Fraud, and public corruption. Brad Thompson, the golden boy, the king, the jock, the mayor, just deflated. He looked at the crowd. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I finally saw what I had been waiting 20 years to see. Fear. The sound of the handcuffs was shockingly loud in the silent gym. That small, metallic click-click was the sound that broke the spell. Brad didn't fight. He didn't yell. He was a politician to the end. And he knew when the votes weren't there. He put his hands behind his back, his face white as chalk. The investigators walked him off the stage, past the Go Wolverines banner, and out the side door of the gymnasium. The entire class of 2005 watched him go. For a full 10 seconds. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if the whole town had been holding its breath for 10 years and just let it out. Then, from the back, someone started to clap. It wasn't for me. It was a slow, rhythmic, almost angry clap. It was Kevin, the other nerd from the AV club, the one Brad used to stuff into lockers. Then another person joined, and another. Within a minute, the entire gym, minus Brad's stunned wife and a few of his closest cronies, was applauding. They were applauding the fall of a king. They were applauding the simple, brutal, beautiful satisfaction of a bully finally getting what he deserved. I didn't stay for the celebration. I quietly put the $1 million check back in my briefcase. The donation was real. But the audit was the real gift. Mr. Henderson, the principal, grabbed my arm as I stepped off the stage. His eyes were wide. "Son," he said, his voice trembling. "Is this all of it? Is it true?" I nodded. "It's all true. Sire, my firm sent a complete, unredacted copy of our audit to the State Attorney General's office this morning. It's over." He looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time, "David Chen," he said, as if tasting the name. "Well, thank you." I just nodded again. "Rebuild that tech wing. Mr. Henderson, build it right." I walked out of the gym. I didn't stop to talk to Jessica Riley, who was crying. I didn't stop to talk to the half-dozen people who were now rushing toward me, their faces a mixture of awe and fear. I just walked. I got into my rented Tesla. The silence of the electric engine, a welcome relief. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw the flashing blue and red lights of the state police cruiser pulling Brad Thompson away. I drove to the airport in Cleveland that night and took the first red-eye back to San Francisco. The aftermath was explosive. The Willow Creek scandal was the biggest news in Ohio for weeks. Brad Thompson's case was swift. The data was undeniable. My firm's audit had left no stone unturned, no shell company undiscovered. He had stolen closer to $2 million over his term. His brother-in-law testified against him for a lighter sentence. Brad was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 7 to 10 years in a state penitentiary. The town was rocked. They had to hold an emergency election. Jessica Riley, in a move that surprised everyone, ran on a platform of total transparency. She won in a landslide. The first thing she did was officially accept the Willow Creek Futures Initiative donation and the ethics committee that came with it. The school is being rebuilt. I'm told the new technology lab built with clean money is going to be named the Chen Center for Innovation. The irony is not lost on me. I'm sitting in my office in Palo Alto. It's a corner office, 40 stories up, with a view of the entire bay. It's about as far from Willow Creek, Ohio, as a person can get. My assistant just buzzed in. A reporter from the Columbus Dispatch is on the line, wanting another quote for a 1 year later story on the scandal. I told her to say I'm unavailable. It's funny what people remember. People in Willow Creek. They call me a hero. They say I saved the town. They say I'm a selfless philanthropist. They've rewritten the story again, this time casting me as the avenging angel. They're wrong. I didn't do it for them. I didn't do it for the town. I didn't even do it for the $1 million. Which, to my company, is a rounding error. I did it for that skinny, scared, 17-year-old kid with the taped-up glasses. I did it for the ghost in the basement computer lab. I did it to prove, once and for all, that the Data Daves of the world, we keep the receipts. Brad's mistake wasn't just being a bully. His mistake wasn't just being a thief. His mistake was underestimating the person he bullied. He thought I was still that same scared kid, frozen in time. He forgot that in 20 years, the world changed. The rules changed. The jocks don't run the world anymore. The quarterbacks, the prom queens. They're just normal people now, worried about their mortgages. The world is run by the nerds, the data scientists, the coders, the kids who paid attention. People love a good comeback story, but this wasn't just a comeback. This was a data-driven, fully audited, hostile takeover of a narrative. Brad Thompson destroyed my Project Phoenix, so I built a new one. An algorithm designed to analyze his entire pathetic, corrupt life and burn it straight to the ground. That's the real power. Not muscles, not popularity. It's information. And the patience to wait 20 years to use it.